Welcome to everybody who's here tonight, especially to our folks who were part of the mentee, went through the mentee program and applied, and to Michelle, who was our successful candidate, who had the opportunity to work with Susan on this incredible project. From a historical point of view, a zillion years ago, and Jillian will remember this, we contracted Nick Wade, who's a well-respected community artist, to do a plan for this park. This was a new park that was coming in. It's a regional park that was much desired on the north side for many, many years. Lots of community consultation on the park and what should be in it. And a real dedication to having public art. So Nick did a plan, and one of the sites that he identified as part of this plan was for some sort of artwork that would be installed in this site, as well as there is a wall in the pavilion across the way that also has a site that was decided would be a good opportunity for a mentee. So this is a really unique and first project. We're talking with Sue Ying. There's two firsts here. This is the first mosaic that's being added to the City of Lethbridge Public Art Collection. And it's the first time that we've established a mentee program, which we will, I think, try and do a lot more of, because to build our own community of artists is so very important. Now I'm going to introduce Susan Day, who competed against a lot of very skilled and talented artists with a proposal to do the mosaic here. We're delighted that she was successful. I'm absolutely in love with this piece of art. I think it's a brilliant addition to our collection here in the city. It's been lovely working with Susan. She comes to us from London, Ontario. She's been busy making thousands and thousands of tiles to go into the mosaic. I think that's one of the wonderful things, is that this is a piece where the hand of the artist is clearly visible, which is, to me, a really important part of public art. So I'm going to let Susan come up and talk to us a little bit about her practice, about the piece, and I know that she is really open to a question, answer, and good dialogue around art and the importance of art. So, Susan, welcome to our community. Congratulations on this beautiful, beautiful work of art, and we're excited to hear you talk.
Thanks very much. Okay. I'm trying to get in the right spot here. Is this a good spot for you? Perfect. First of all, I'm thrilled to have done this project, and it's been amazing working with Suzanne and Jillian and the Allied Arts Council in the city, and then more recently working with Michelle has been amazing and really impactful personally. This project has been. Katie Bruce from the Allied Arts Council had given me some suggestions to speak about process, mentorship, planning, and my inspirations that get me to where I am with a piece like this, and have gotten me to this stage in my career. So I'm going to basically go through that. I'm going to start with the process, and a piece like this has the process is pretty labor intensive. The main thing for this, my initial concern, is always the suitability for the environment where the piece is going up. And this, the climactic zone in Lethbridge is very similar to the climactic zone in London, Ontario, where I've done other public art projects that are on exteriors, and they've been 100% successful. We haven't lost a tile yet with the projects in London, and other than to a motor vehicle accident where someone went through the wall, but that was not my fault. So Lethbridge, Alberta is 4A. That's the climactic zone here. And London, Ontario is 5B. So we're very close. London gets more extremes, but Lethbridge has more like a lengthy winter period. So very similar, but we had to do some testing, and that testing includes getting a clay that can handle the freeze thaw. So the clay has to absorb less than 1.5% water after it's being fired to glaze temperature. Sorry. And I use a clay from Ontario. It's Tucker's clay body. But we're testing, Michelle and I are testing a plainsman clay that's mined in Saskatchewan or Alberta? Saskatchewan, yeah. And so we're testing that. We've already got some textiles with these glazes on them. So she can go through my testing process, which basically is putting a glazed tile in a sink of water for 24 hours. So it absorbs as much water as possible. And then that same tile goes into a freezer for 24 hours, comes out, goes into a sink full of water, 24 hours in the water, 24 hours in the freezer, and you do that for 30 days. So you're replicating the freeze-thaw cycle, and if the clay survives and the glaze survives, you've got a winner with the project. What I've done with this, even though these glazes are all different colors, it's all the same glaze. And I basically use the same glaze for everything I do for exteriors. So it's pretty fail-safe. I haven't lost, what would happen if it was failing is the surface would pop off. It's called spalling, I think, when it just pops off in the freeze-thaw. And so that's the first step that's very important. With my work, I have, if you've looked closely at this, there's all kinds of textures on it. So I've kind of created the most labor-intensive way of making work possible, I believe. And I've tried to put efficiency to my studio practice, and I just don't get the same result. So I need to kind of keep all these stages. So what I'm doing is I'm making plaster. I'm making bisque. I'm sorry, not plaster. I'm making thick bisque stamps. So a lot of these drawings are drawn on an unglazed tile, and then I can use that unglazed tile as a stamp to make hundreds of them. And I really am making hundreds. And I'm working on a project now with the Children's Museum in London, Ontario, and a lot of the tiles are going to be child-generated. And so some of these stamps are going to be children's drawings. So the children's drawings of trees and flowers and things will be used over and over and over again, because in multiples, it's just much stronger. You just get a much, much stronger image. I'm also, these pieces here are just pinched by hand. And so I'm using my fingertips. I'm using really, really low-tech, simple clay methods. I've always worked with clay, but I haven't followed the path of making vessels or aiming for some sort of, I'm almost associating it with colonialism, but the perfection that we're looking for with some pottery, like these perfectly round shapes all the time. That's not a natural form for me to make. I haven't been able to do it. So I'm really just going the other way. I'm aiming to show the marks of my hands. I'm not aiming to remove them. I want my fingertips on these things. And when I have a studio assistant at home. She works 3 days a week with me, and she made most of these pieces, these large ones. We call them pipes, and the pipes are kind of like a tree, or they're really just a structure that I'm using to give some form that I can work off of pieces. Like I'm putting the birds and things on them. But when Carrie, my studio assistant, is making these, I'm asking her to. She was texting me yesterday, she's working on something, she said, do you want me to slap all the tiles? And I said, yep, you have to slap them all, they all need to be slapped. So, maybe that can be edited out, I don't know, but that's not great. But no, I want the fingertips on them. I'm not looking for some homogeneous surface. And when I get things that are too homogeneous, I tend to just discard them. I want the things to have, some life to them and some individuality. And I want, when we're working on this, I kept saying to Michelle and to my husband Rob, who's been working with us, I want straight lines. So I want things vertical or horizontal. There's nothing here other than perhaps this, which was when I was out getting my hair cut and my husband did this. Isn't that what, I think that's what actually happened. But everything else is straight lines. Like, it's really important that it's straight. So it can have some fluidity to it. And this straight line here isn't, it's got an arc to it. I'm not using a laser level to mark these things, but I'm trying to get some spot, and this is going to move me to my talking about my inspirations and what I'm working about. And I'm really, really interested in the environment. And this piece is called The New Nature. So it's I'm thinking about it. I have children that are 26 and 30, and they're honestly really pissed off. Like, they're pissed off about the environment. They're worried. They don't know what the future holds for them. And I think this seems to be, like, coming to Lethbridge, Alberta anyways, it seems like the environment is so healthy around here. You're not as faced with the kind of bleakness of southwestern Ontario. So, like, I'm looking for a new way to look at the environment, but I'm also looking at the chaos in our lives. Like, and the chaos, we all experience it, but it's not necessarily a negative thing. And I'm thinking of a story that Jillian said the other day. So I'm going to mention your 5-year-old child. We were meeting the other day, and she talked about how her 5-year-old child was just that morning telling her how cell phones worked. And it was really like, just this fantastical description. But I was thinking, that wasn't the only thing happening at that time. Like, you were probably, getting people's shoes on, packing lunches, planning for work, maybe, because I've called her house at times like that. Like, there's, like, none of us live in like a capsule. We're all living where all of these things are going on, and there is some real beauty in that chaos. So this, like, I really view this like a beautiful, chaotic environment. But there's some control to the chaos, and we can find moments of peace within it too. It's like if you're driving, I often have to go into Toronto for work, and if I'm driving around Toronto, it's out of control, the driving and the environment and stuff like that. But then you look next to you and you see some lovely family having a good exchange in their car when you're in a traffic jam, and you just see these little moments of beauty. So, okay. So, the other thing with the planning of this is I knew what the square footage was of this piece and what I had committed to covering. And I knew basically the drawing, like, I had a drawing that was part of my original proposal that we photoshopped onto the actual drawings of the east and west facing walls. And so I was following that. That was always my template. There was, moments of, diverging a bit. We wrapped the whole wall because I really like those angles where the colors are meeting and you're seeing different things. But I needed to know the square footage of things without knowing 100% where every tile is going to go. Because I didn't come here knowing that this tile is going to be here. I came here knowing that we'd basically have this structure, we'd have that head with the ray coming out there, and then the structures on the outside. And I had enough of the large figures, like the silhouettes and the birds and the flowers, and then more than enough of the small pieces. So those were the pieces where it's kind of like freestyling. Like, it's almost like how I'm talking right now. But it's like I needed to see the pieces up on the wall. And I am not a person that can work in a way that's that constrained, that I can say, this is exactly where this is going, this is where that's going. We needed to see how the pieces interacted with each other and with the light here. And it was a pretty fluid process. Like, and Michelle was really great in that process. And, there was times when I think she probably, makes me think about something. She had some funny thoughts about my ideas of random, because I want random, but I don't want it to be a planned random, because I think often random is very difficult for people to achieve, because random also includes getting 20 tiles that are the same together. That's part of random. And so to find out that I had the right amount of tiles, we do this by weight. So I weigh what a pound of tiles weighs of the different types, and then I would accumulate that. And I needed about 450 square feet before the mirror. So my studio assistant, Carrie, she's really good with the logistics end of things. So she basically took care of that. And when the tiles would come out of the kiln, I think some of you have seen pictures of my studio during the process. And so the tiles would come out of the kiln, and we would just leave a pile for Carrie for the 3 days she was there a week. And she would organize them in types, weigh them, and she kept a tally of the weight that we were at. And so, like, as amazing as a piece like this is, and it's like, it really is, I can't believe when it happens every time that we get it done. It doesn't, like, I'm just part of it. Like, I could never do this alone, and I wouldn't want to do it alone. I'd be absolutely miserable. So it's, like, I have Carrie full-time, or 3 days a week. My husband helps with the installation. He's not really interested in the studio stuff much. And then I have a few volunteers, and Michelle really helped out this time too. But really, it was just 2 weeks in the studio, so that wasn't, I've been working on this project since January. So, and then I guess the thing I really need to speak about now is the mentorship. So this project, I'd never responded to a call that had a mentorship element to it. So it was interesting and challenging, and especially challenging when we got the first round of all the proposals from the potential candidates, because I had 100% imposter syndrome. It was like they were all more educated than I am. They were doing all these excellent things all over, and it was really, really humbling, the whole thing. But I have to say that I think it's totally the way to go. And I think what Suzanne was saying earlier about trying to involve this in other projects going forward, it's such a rich exchange, because Michelle's getting really tangible things to go forward with, and we will have a relationship that goes past this being finished, and that's really huge. And I remember as a younger artist having, just making those connections, and how rich that can be, and just someone else to reach out and ask, like, is this the right thing for me to apply for, or what do you think? But I have to say that it really helped me in my self-determination as an artist, describing my practice to Michelle, and I got so much out of that. Like, it was just such an interesting, when I got over the kind of fear factor of it all, just realizing that, I do have valuable things to exchange. And I do, I think now, this generation of younger artists, education's a really big part of their practice. Not every younger artist, but a lot. My generation, that wasn't always a positive. So that was a hurdle for us. But it wasn't a hurdle, with us having communication. But it was I felt threatened by that. It didn't come from Michelle's angle, but I think we have so much to share, just on a personal level. And I think my proposal for the mentorship element spoke about the soft skills and the hard skills. And the hard skills being, the last couple of weeks of installing this, working in the studio. But the main thing, I think, has been just the exchange of ideas and the exchange of, what's important, what drives you, what gets you going. And most people don't have, I'm in a super fortunate position right now where I can make a decent living doing my work. And most people don't get that. They get, half education or half another job, and then they're also working in the studio. So I think, I don't know, I just think it's been a very, very positive experience. And I've learned a lot from Michelle as well. So it's just like it's a project, it's a process that builds bridges between generations and between different artists, and those only have positive repercussions. Like it's only, you can only get positive from that. And you may have some complicated relationships here and there, but I think everyone benefits, and the communities benefit too. And then, you know, Michelle's learning tangible things with this skill set. Her work is very different from this, and she's got very, very different interests and drivers, and but I'm really excited to see what you do with this, like where, you know, this process, which is kind of, you know, very hands-on, a bit rough, where that takes you. And so that gets me to where I get my inspiration, or how I start with a project like this. And my inspiration, like I have worked with clay for about 40 years. I have never worked, my early career was making large clay tablets that were like surfaces for painting. So I was really painting on them. And I am the child of a severely disabled mother. So I did, with that work, I drew the apparatus that my mother used, and that was my normal at home. And I realized, like, she had died by the time I was doing this, but I could draw these objects that were just full of, like, they were such potent objects, and I could draw them from memory. And that, like, the scratchiness of my drawing style was really, like, it just really worked. Like, they were really emotional drawings of lifts and crutches and wheelchairs and hospital beds and things like that. And then from that work, I went to building the objects. So I built terracotta wheelchairs, and they were full size, and I could build them from just from memory. They wouldn't stand on their own. Like, they fell apart, they fell over, like a broken body would fall over. And I was working on all these things. I had a couple kids, I was busy. And then I really lost focus. Like, I really didn't know what I was doing with my work. This was about 7 years ago. I was ready to just get rid of my kiln, you know, just be a gardener or something like that. And I just didn't know what to do. And in London, we have a London Clay Art Centre, which is, it's like CASA, I think, but it's more of a potter's guild. Like, it's very making mugs oriented, you know, place. And I signed up to go there because the visual art community and the craft community in London do not, like, sorry, the visual art community and the craft community do not, they have no connection. So I could go there and they wouldn't know that I was an established artist in the art gallery and showing, you know, all over Canada and the States and stuff. So I signed up for a beginning pottery class to learn how to throw on the wheel and just kind of reinvigorate my love of the medium. And I was able to do that for about 3 weeks, and then I was outed by someone. And it's true, it was true. And they had a commission to do, they had just gotten money for the Canada 150 to do a mosaic. And they came and they said, could you do this? And I said, oh, I've got it. Like, I'd never done anything like that before. But it really kind of paired some of the things that I was feeling with making work that was, I wanted to make work that was personal, but that wasn't totally my personal, that could be personal about other people and have other people's voices in it. And so I was able to get doing these, figure out the technical stuff of these large mosaics, because I'd never done this before. I went to Philadelphia to work with Isaiah Zagar, who's done a whole neighborhood in South Philadelphia called Philly's Magic Garden. And he did that work. He was back from the American Peace Corps and suffering from severe PTSD and started doing these mosaics. And he just, like, they're all commercial tile mosaics and commercial like plates and crockery. But his technique is what we're doing here, like the technique, the grouting technique, which Michelle and Rob and I did a little section here today. So that just got me thinking about doing big work, doing the community engaged work is amazing. And then after doing a few years of major community engagement projects, which we did 7 in London in 3 years, large areas. And then I wanted to work on my own. So right now I feel like I've got a good balance of working on my own. I need lots of support to get these things done, but I'm able to get it. People are pretty interested in the projects, and they seem to come around. And if there's a mentorship element, that, you know, really helps get the work done too. So I don't know, but if anyone has any questions, this would be a good time. Okay. The question is, are these symbols or characters that I've worked with over a long time, or do they come from drawings? And both, actually. My drawing practices really goes side by side with my tile making practice. And these images are on a lot of my drawings. And I do tend to use the same sort of images, the same, like the line of that silhouette is in my kind of drawings a lot. There's not a lot, like I'm attracted to different decorative elements. There's a lot of crosses in here. They're not, there's no religion involved in these works. Is that helpful? The other thing with that too is I was going to mention earlier, these works, and this work in particular, I work out the large tile works on vessels. So I make large handmade vessels, and I use them as drawing surfaces. And I mostly use, there's a technique called mishima, where it's an incised and filled line. So it makes a really beautiful drawn line. And so I make these vessels, and I can work these big things out on a 20, 25-inch vessel. And those vessels, I have a dealer in New York, so I'm now selling the vessels there. So that works for me in that way. And they, it's really good to get them out of my studio. It's really difficult for me to sell things sometimes. Like, it's easy for me, not easy, but I can take the money from a commission, but getting the money selling my pieces, I haven't quite figured out why I have difficulty with that, but I do. So, yeah.
Similar line of question, and thank you so much for sharing a bit about this work and your practice. It's really interesting to hear about the process and your inspiration. I guess in terms of some of the narratives that are unfolding here, some of that imagery, it was interesting to hear you compare the environment of London versus Lethbridge and the kind of role, the critical role of connecting with environment that you learned through family and through the next generation's fears, goals. I'm wondering if, in terms of this environment, this park, did you get a chance to spend time here? Did you have a chance to think about how you might want to respond and capture some of the Alberta landscape, some of the Lethbridge landscape within this work? Are there birds that you were inspired by, trees or fauna and flora that you were inspired by?
Okay, the question is, did I get the opportunity to come to Lethbridge before the piece was made to be inspired by this, natural environment? And I did have the opportunity to. I didn't take advantage of it. I was presented with really good images of the park and with videos of the park, and I did quite a bit of research about the natural environment. But most of my, the flora and fauna are all fictional. It's just, they're very fictional, and I struggle. My earlier work was really heavy. It was really heavy personal stuff. And it was really important for me to do, and I'm trying to kind of make some sort of middle ground between this, which could almost be, I think there's a somberness to this, with the silhouettes in particular, but the colors, and it's joyful too. It's a happy, I don't know. I hope that's answering your question. Okay, Nicole.
Thank you so much for sharing all the process details. I was thinking with the imagery that's in this, the way it struck me is that it's not literal imagery of nature. It kind of is, it's imaginative, it's symbolic, it's kind of more open so that people, young and old, any age group, different people can sit and they're going to get these different, very imaginary kind of wanderings of the mind within it. And in a way, in my interpretation, that new nature, that's kind of what it is. It's kind of like going into the other work. I appreciate that about it. I really like the light reflected in the mirror work, and I feel like that is kind of grounding yet ethereal. Like it brings these two elements together. It's just gorgeous.
Oh, thank you. Thank you. So the comment was more about the. It wasn't. It was a comment. That's what, yeah. It's good, but it was about the. I don't know if you would say playful or, like playful but thoughtful, like quality that the figures have. And also like commenting on the mirrors. And I think the mirrors are something that I got from the workshops in Philadelphia with Isaiah Zagar. And he uses a lot of mirror. He uses broken mirror. And I took his techniques and I kind of went crazy with them because he does these things, but I make every tile and he uses broken mirrors and people show up with mirrors and he just use them and I have to have, like I keep telling Michelle, these have to be fresh mirrors. And they do, they don't cut properly unless they're fresh. Like you need to buy fresh mirror and then you can get a good cut on it. So, but I think that the mirrors really, like I just wrote a proposal and I wrote about the mirrors and the proposals for the mental health hospital in Toronto, the really big one, and they want biophilic art. So art where, I wrote down the, I wrote the description here. It challenges our perceived separation from the rest of nature. So how in a mental health environment, people's health is complemented by connections to nature. And the moving by the mirrors, like if I move by it, it's almost like light coming through trees when you're in the forest. And it's really, it's got a really special quality because you're reflected in it, but you don't see yourself. The environment's reflected in it. I don't know if it's ever going to make sense to put lights on this wall. Probably not, because I think the lights kind of get rid of the mirror beauty thing. But the mirrors are really lovely, and I've had people, like the house that we live in London is entirely covered in mosaic, and it's in a really rough area of the city, and I've had men shaving in front of these things. So, you know, but they don't have anywhere, like they don't have a bathroom of their own, so that works for them. But yeah, any other questions?
I have a question. First one, very technical. What's the adhesive you use?
The question is, what adhesive do I use? And the one I use for this, it's a flex tile product called MaxiFlex 5400. And if you just send me a message if you want to know more about that. It's a thin set mortar, so it comes dry and we mix it. It is, I think it's the best. Like I'm not wavering from that. It comes in gray or white, and it's, if you want to do a pool or a fountain, you could use it as well. Like it really handles the freeze thaw.
Second one is more actually kind of like, do you have a background in like any sort of like gardening or something? Just when you were mentioning your climate zone and stuff, that's very,
Yeah, the question is just about my interest or background with gardening, and I lived in a house, this big house before we left, and you're getting more than you asked for with this question. Yeah, well, yeah, so I just got totally into gardening. My brother killed himself, and I just couldn't make sense of things. And I gardened, and I made this crazy, bigger than this area, all garden. There was no grass, so I learned a lot.
I had a trauma and I turned a garden about this size into a 1 acre. But yeah, I get it.
It's a really positive use of grief or trauma or something like that. But then we had to leave it because I couldn't keep up with it any longer. So.
I got
else have any questions at all? It's good.
So, thank you, Susan. Thank you for sharing your work and your story. If people think of questions, particularly technical questions, down the road, I think Susan is super accommodating with her practice and willing to share, which is awesome for our community. Thank you to Michelle for the work you've put into this project. I know it's been a positive experience for both of you. And thank you to all of you for coming this evening and sharing in the work, sharing with us, having some food and some time together. So thank you all. And I think we'll keep the bar open for a few minutes if people want to linger and visit for a bit. And hopefully we'll have many more gatherings like this and many more beautiful public artworks that we can celebrate as community. So thank you all.